Now we're live. Live is hard mode. I inadvertently missed checking a box, and the button didn't work the first time I pushed the go live, bitch. Oh.
We're late. That's probably enough. You should run it.
Yeah, let's do that. And good morning.
Yeah, good morning. That's enough.
Yeah. How you doing this morning, Cameron?
I'm fantastic. I mean, I'm as fantastic as I can be, given what we have to talk about this morning and how. I mean, long story
GCM
short,
says he's in South Carolina this morning.
long story short, we lost.
Sort of.
I mean, no, not sort of. Like, we lost. Do we have the Senate?
No, but it looks like we have the House.
By like,
Which is not nothing.
look, divided government is always a fantastic.
Obviously, it would be much better to have the House and Senate against the president. But it does mean that the bizarre runoff between Warnock and Walker is suddenly a lot less important.
Yeah, the question is, who does that matter more to? I guess, like, if it was one thing, when the runoff that was going to happen in Georgia was going to be, oh God, this is going to be control of the Senate, and now actually it's not. Democrats technically have control. As soon as the party in power has 50, since the vice president is the tie-breaking vote, that's all you need. So who's less excited to go participate in the runoff with that runoff?
The runoff. Yeah, so I think Herschel has a good shot at winning the runoff. Because not just that Republicans tend to turn out stronger in more obscure elections, Democrats tend to turn out better in the bigger the election, the higher the Democrat turnout. Republicans tend to vote more consistently. So there's that. And given that the importance of the seat has been somewhat diluted by the fact that the Democrats technically have control of the Senate right now, I suspect that there will not be quite as much foreign interference. And by foreign interference, I mean money spent by people outside of the state of Georgia. Let me reiterate that. Any money spent outside of a political geographic location on the political activities of that specific geographic location is foreign interference, right? If people in Decatur donate to somebody running for a local office in Conyers, that is foreign interference as surely as California billionaires spending money on Stacey Abrams or Raphael Warnock or John Ossoff, et cetera, et cetera.
No, I can't. No. Money's fungible. As soon as you donate to the RNC, you've effectively donated to somebody in California or Colorado or Alaska.
No. Because you can donate directly to individual candidate campaigns. Donating to a national party and the national party having involvement is a completely different issue than making direct donations to individual candidates, because there are rules in place, which is not to say that those rules are always followed, but the law does prevent that money, in theory, from being fungible across those very specific, strict delineations. There are certain things that an individual candidate can spend his voting money on, his election money on, that cannot be paid for by the national party. Just like if you're somebody that
Yeah, actually, Alex beat me to the next punch.
And I'm totally comfortable with that.
Rules out PACs?
And the Senate Leadership Fund, and even the Federal Election Fund. Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with eliminating as much money from politics as possible.
No, absolutely the opposite. People should be allowed to spend their money.
See, here's a conversation I didn't expect we were going to have this morning.
No,
let's do this.
Absolutely the opposite. People should be able to spend their money on whatever they want, just generally speaking.
Agreed.
And then in this particular case, the problem with the way the system is set up is not that there's all the millions and millions of dollars in politics. It's the fact that it's striated. You and I can't have access to that money coming or going.
Right.
You've got to already be in the loop, and the loop protects itself by having all those donations be anonymous, unless of course you're in California and you donate to a cause that supports traditional marriage. Then your name accidentally gets leaked and you get run out of your job. So there's the old joke about how like politicians should be like NASCAR drivers, and they've got to literally like wear a jacket with all of their biggest donors like emblazoned on the jacket. I'm the opposite, man. Spend the money on what you want, but stop hiding it. If you really think Bernie is the best candidate and you want to give Bernie $1 million, good luck. Like you're interfering with somebody else's free expression if you don't let them do it. And besides, like, we live in the state of Georgia. Please believe if I had the opportunity to influence DeKalb County electoral politics, buddy, I wouldn't even hesitate. I wouldn't even feel bad about it.
That you would not feel bad about interfering in someone else's election does not strike me as a particularly cogent argument.
Only if you accept the fact that it's interference. Yeah, only if we accept your definition of election interference and spending money on candidates that you think are a good fit for your local community. Like, DeKalb County is just a few miles down the road.
It is.
Yeah, whatever they do is going to directly affect us. I'm not just interfering in somebody else's election. I'm guarding my backyard. Oh, my neighbor doesn't like the way my fence looks? Yeah, sorry, it's still my backyard. I'm putting the fence up.
And so Sergeant Major says money is representation of risk and reward. You should be able to spend your money as you please. First Amendment. Agreed. And part of the problem is, individually, we are not allowed to spend our money on politics in certain ways. There are specific caps on how much you can donate to an individual candidate. And to your point about money being fungible, that's where you run into things like the FTX crypto funding. And apparently, we were just talking about the FTX situation this morning and haven't gotten far enough down the road into the analysis on that to do a show on it yet, because that's basically breaking news. There's still information that needs to be examined to really understand what happened there. But it does look like, as I've pointed out many, many times in the past, that the Ukraine has been basically one big money laundering schema for the Democrats. And turns out Democrats are super pro-Nazi if there's a profit margin in it, which should surprise absolutely no one.
It doesn't.
I mean, we're talking about the same people that gave us the Me Too movement, which also proved that prostitution is a perfectly valid career decision until it's convenient to regret your coyote ugly decisions. So remember, those are the sorts of people that we're talking about when we have that conversation.
See, and then St. Michael brings up see, you guys are all ahead of me in the chat. You're making me feel very clever because I was going to point to the McCain-Feingold Act that supposedly cleaned up all the election systems. But instead, because you've got all these hoops that you have to jump through, and you've got all this compliance, really only somebody that's part of the machine can operate inside the confines of the McCain-Feingold Act. And then let's not forget, for the past several presidential cycles, Obama had to pay fines for violating campaign finance.
Correct.
And Trump had to pay fines for violating campaign finance. And Biden had to pay fines for violating campaign finance. No. When it's kind of like the income tax. When you introduce this big, convoluted, complicated scheme, even though the income tax supposedly is supposed to tax the rich, they're also the ones that get all the tax breaks. And the only way you eliminate that is to eliminate the system from the ground up. If you want somebody to, I'm sorry, man. If I want to give $100,000 to Greg Abbott because Texas is one of the most important states, and we've got to hold it, and we've got to have a Republican governor in Texas, because if there's any amphibious priapism that takes over Texas, we will never win another national election. And I can't spend my money on that? Nah, bullshit. That's not interference.
Under the current rule set, you can't give him $100,000.
No, I can give him $2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not interference.
So, okay. First, real quick, I want to address this. Alex and Legion both just said two different things about how we lost Arizona. And I just want to point out to both of you, it can be, and I suspect is, a little bit of column A and a little from column B. McConnell withholding Senate leadership funds from Arizona. Yes, McConnell basically anti-elected Kerry Lake.
See, and then Alex even goes on to say that the whole thing was PACs, that McCain-Feingold was absolutely neutered by Citizens United.
Correct.
So the whole PAC system is what lets you get around. Now, you can't personally get around it. You've got to basically trust that your surrogates will, carry your message forward. But anyhow.
Here, save your phone.
Yeah, thanks. That's not my phone.
This is my phone.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I see what happened. My phone is fine. Anyhow, but look. Okay. They bring up McConnell. We can't talk about Legion's theory on.
Right. We can't talk about Legion's theory on YouTube, or we'll get thrown off of YouTube for something absurd. I will go only so far, Legion, in that as to say obvious thing is obvious.
So, but look, just to kind of start to tie it together, Dave over on Rumble says if Hollywood weren't able to send money to Georgia, Warnock wouldn't be in office. I don't know that that's correct, because Hollywood spent a lot of money on Stacey Abrams, and she got her ass kicked. That's
true. I will point out that in one of the things that happened in Florida, DeSantis signed into law. I don't remember the name of the law, but it specifically referred to what they called Zuck bucks, where Mark Zuckerberg explicitly funded ballot harvesting, which is legal in many states, but even in most states where ballot harvesting is legal, it is illegal to pay someone to ballot harvest. That is not true, however, in the strongest Democrat states, where it is perfectly legal to pay someone to ballot harvest. That is the minority of states, but in about just over half of states, 26 states, the act of ballot harvesting is perfectly legal, and that's especially effective in cities. It's more effective, which is why it's so much more effective for Democrats. The Democrats can go to an apartment building and harvest 1,000 ballots, whereas if you want to conduct Republican ballot harvesting operations, you're going out into the suburbs and the country, and you're driving from door to door to door, and you're maxing out at 2 or 3 ballots per stop instead of 1,000 ballots per stop.
Yeah, you go to an apartment complex and you can get dozens right there.
Right.
Okay. So we've wandered really.
But one of the things that happened in Florida is the Zuck bucks that were spent on ballot harvesting in a previous election, which will remain unassociated with this particular commentary. The Zuck bucks were axed. You were not allowed to send money from external forces to fund ballot harvesting operations in Florida. Florida is one of the largest states in the country and managed to have its election resolved before the polls were even closed on the West Coast. Whereas you look at places like Arizona, and they weren't even, it seems like they were barely even able to finish counting the 2022 midterm before the 2026 midterm began.
Let's move the ball forward and actually try and bring it back to the thesis. All right. So there's, outside of certain amphibious priapism shenanigans, there's 2 basic schools of thought. Okay. There is Mitch McConnell decided that he would play games with the Senate money. Like the thing with Murkowski, like a Republican was going to win Alaska no matter what. It was just a question of which one. But there were some that was up in the air, like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada. There was some question there. You would think that a Republican would be able to win, but maybe not. And even here in Georgia, you would think that a Republican would be able to win, but maybe not. So there's that. It says Mitch McConnell, for whatever reason, for ego, for the fact that he didn't want to work with MAGA candidates, whatever. Mitch McConnell fucked up. Then there's the other side of it. There's the other thing that says, well, actually, you lay the blame at Trump, okay? He had a huge war chest. He only spent a few $1 million out of it. And basically, every Trump-backed candidate underperformed. They either won, but won at a margin disproportionate to the rest of the Republican victories, or they lost. And I think what's really interesting is right here in Georgia, and Alex said something about Georgia's now blood red. That is absolutely correct. And here, in a blood red state that has, let's say, been defortified, at least marginally, like, y'all, Fulton County was one of the first ones done. I don't know that that's ever happened in my lifetime. But Georgia's kind of the interesting test case for this, because Brian Kemp smashed Stacey Abrams. Same thing for Lieutenant Governor. Brad Raffensperger cruised to re-election. And funny enough, you know how we have to have audits of at least one major race? Brad Raffensperger said, go ahead and do mine first. Which, okay, I got to respect that. I got that. That's funny. Okay, but here's the thing. What happened here in Georgia, I think, is really the test case for it, because is what happened here in Georgia, Trump has finally gotten so toxic he's more harm than he is good? Or is what happened here in Georgia, Mitch McConnell should have seen the fact that Warnock was flooding the airwaves with all of this negative shit about Herschel Walker, and even just a few $1 million to counterbalance the narrative, I could see it being some of both. Like I'm honestly asking the question because with what's happening here again in Georgia, I'm not real sure what I think yet. I know that we lost. I know that Kerry Lake lost, something I wouldn't have seen coming from a mile off. But
Right.
But apparently Maricopa County is a funny place.
Alex McDonald said, I'm not even reading I don't even need to read your comment out. I know that you're working on some legislative stuff vis-a-vis YouTube in the state of Georgia, Alex, and brother, I am in. Whatever you need that's within my talent and ability to do, ask, and I'm there. Even if it's just holding a camera while you're shaking hands with somebody, let me know.
Okay, so your dad says...
As you obviously know, I can run my damn mouth, make some noise, and be very visible.
So your dad says anti-Trump Republicans cost the red wave.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, but I think while that's a true statement, I think you have to go one layer deeper, and the question is why? There were a whole lot of anti-Trump Republicans that actually ended up voting for Trump in 2020.
Yes. So going back to 2016 and the whole phenomenon of never Trumpers, I want you guys to take a moment and understand what it means to be a never Trumper. It means that you are so concerned with the visible decorum and the character, the celebrity, the persona of your politician that you are willing to absolutely jettison your entire moral framework and your entire political ethic on the mere whiff of a social faux pas, that you're so afraid of the mere optics of vulgarity, of whatever it is that you assume Trump to be, that you're willing to just completely jettison your dedication to a limited government, the protection of unborn life, the sacrosanct nature of the Constitution, the right to keep and bear arms, the freedom of speech, religion, assembly, petition, and press.
Anyhow,
you're willing to just completely jettison everything that you've ever said you stand for on the mere optics of a public persona. So to the never Trumpers out there, I disdain you entirely. You're weak, you are uncivilized, and you are morally intolerable.
Anyhow, in 2020 and 2022,
those people still vote.
Yes, those people still vote, but again, like, you got to go a layer deeper, okay? Because I'll get right to it, all right? And here's what I'm having a real problem with. I would still vote for Donald Trump, and I was not a never Trumper. We're talking about this. I voted for Ted Cruz in the 2016 primary. Mm-hmm. And it was over the course of Donald Trump's presidency where he governed in a center-right fashion. I don't think there's any question about that. I became a huge Trump supporter, and I felt the exact opposite of what you just described. Fuck your optics. I've had optics my entire life, and it gives me this uniparty bullshit that always talks about, oh, the evil government that spends too much money, but then the government continues spending money. Oh, the evil corporations that spend too much money or make too much money, and yet the evil corporations still make too much money, and blah, 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 right? Nothing ever changes. Donald Trump gets into office. Things actually start to change. North and South Korea march under a unified flag for the first time in decades. And then Donald Trump gets kicked out. There's all the bullshit. There's all the suspicion. There's all the weirdness. And then he gets kicked off Twitter. And I hate it. I hate it. However, if Trump is so tainted that we cannot win with him, Now what? That is the thing. That is the point that I am at.
That's a fair question. And I think so. That's what we're hearing. We're hearing that Donald Trump lost us this midterm because he's so toxic that his candidates couldn't win. The fact is, though, many of his candidates did win. And he said ahead of time, hey, what's going to happen is I'm going to get blamed for everybody that loses, and I'm not going to get credit for anybody that wins. And that's exactly what's happening. He's getting blamed for everyone he endorsed who lost, and he's not getting credit for anyone he endorsed who won. He's being treated as if he only endorsed the losers.
Hey, real quick.
Now, the fact is he did endorse some losers.
Go ahead.
But DeSantis is a Trump pick. Let's not forget, DeSantis is a Trump pick. Was a Trump pick.
St. Michael, you're actually not going to get a lot of disagreement, just so you know.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation we're going to have about the difference between rights and responsibility. Some of us have rights and responsibilities. Politically, those are not women.
See, look, I don't want it to be the case. I pretty vociferously defended Trump on our live stream on election night.
Yep.
And I still would. I would still argue that if you care about policy, Trump is who you want because he's proven that, you know, a good 80-90% of the time, he's going to enact the kind of policy you and I would want him to enact, which is fantastic, which is a better batting average than just about any other politician in my lifetime. However, if he can't win, and not only can he not win, but he'll drag down the party, I mean...
Okay, so here's where we are. Okay, and Alex has this comment here. I'm going to read the comment, and then I want you to stick with me for this. Alex says, we don't have the data to know yet. We will soon, but I think the data will show that Trump is not good for the Republican Party. Okay, I'm going to correct your statement, Alex, but let me start with this. Cameron, you make a fantastic point. There is risk in backing Donald Trump at this point because there is this optical situation where it looks like Donald Trump is not necessarily the future of the Republican Party. And here's why. For exactly the reasons you just said, if you are interested in conservative policy, conservative government, a successful America that is energy independent, economically flourishing, with the lowest unemployment numbers in history, and just everything goes correct. If you are interested in a strong, prosperous, free America, Donald Trump was and absolutely is your guy. If you vote for a Republican, any Republican other than Donald Trump, as a rule, most of us know that you are not voting for somebody who's going to accomplish things. What you are voting for is you're voting for somebody who will hold a seat, and the best you can hope for is that that seat holder will slow down the eternal march to the destruction of the United States that is the absolute party platform of the Democrat Party. The best you can hope for from a Republican is that they will be a stopgap to slow down the advance of the DNC on a Chinese Communist Party agenda with the absolute intent of dividing this country up into small pieces and selling it off to our enemies. That's the best you can hope for, is that they slow down and never retard or recede the constant destruction of the United States of America by the Democrat Party. And that, because the Republicans who are currently holding the elective offices want to continue to be that and nothing more, is why you're now seeing the Republican Party forward the narrative that Donald Trump is no longer the future of the Republican Party. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy generally. The party has decided that that they want to go back to being the party of boring. They want to go back of being the party of welfare queens that sit and hold our elected offices, collect a paycheck, and accomplish nothing for a long career in which they float in and out of office and never do anything.
Okay, so here's the thing that I fear. Okay. You've had positions of fiduciary responsibility, so you understand one of the primary rules of ethics is that the appearance of ethics is ethics.
Correct.
Well, I'd say that for better or for worse, that applies to anything with regard to optics. The appearance of whether or not Trump can win, why that is, okay. The question is, can he win? And is the appearance of the fact that he can't win? And then you've already got a situation where I could see a world where Trump and DeSantis both get in, and DeSantis might have to get in for a whole bunch of reasons for a different show. And then you will have people that will be loyal to Trump only. You'll have people that'll be loyal to DeSantis only. You'll have a whole bunch of never Trumpers versus a whole bunch of never DeSantisers. And I do believe that at least the Trump loyalists might hold the line and piss away a 2024 election. Again, I point to what happened here in Georgia. Brian Kemp's coattails should have been big enough to drag anybody and everybody across the finish line, and it didn't happen. Now, you want to blame Trump, you want to blame Mitch McConnell, you want to say that this is orchestrated, you want to say that this is the final nail in the coffin, that with Donald Trump being kicked off Twitter and unable to defend himself on a public platform, and he's become less relevant, and the optics of January 6th and everything are all we remember. They're not like you and I that remember years of prosperity and world peace.
Right. Okay. And we only ever hear about the January 6th so-called insurrection. We never hear about the May 29th insurrection.
Right.
And there's an important difference. No churches were burned on January 6th.
But look, the point is, beyond the autopsy, does any of that really matter? And I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter a lot. But you can look forward or you can look backward. And if we're looking forward, we're talking about a guy that's going to be in his late 70s that appears to be toxic.
Sergeant Major just pointed that out.
Oh, there he is, yeah.
Don't forget, Trump is old.
Yeah, a guy that's going to be...
That is a very valid criticism.
Yeah, that's going to be in his late 70s that appears to be quite toxic. And again, one more time, right here in Georgia, everybody but Herschel Walker smashed it. Except for Herschel Walker. And part of that's because there are some legitimate issues with Herschel Walker's campaign. But I think that part of that is the fact that you can tie him to Trump. Because look at every other Trump-backed candidate. I hate it. Whoever Thorne is, that's a nice picture there with a tardigrade as your avatar. That's impressive. Anyhow, man, I don't know where I land on this. Because I know at the very least, it appears as though the X factor might have been Donald Trump. No matter why Donald Trump was the X factor is less important, I think, in this case than the fact that he was the X factor. So, there you go. But it's after 8 o'clock.
Legion, you might be right about that.
I know people
I'd like
that
to
did
see
that.
some numbers on that.
I know people that did that.
Because that's just mind-boggling. And Stryker says 1A long before 2A, 1A not exhausted yet. No, it's not. But just barely. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.